Shabbat Shalom. I'm Rabbah Arlene Berger, and I'm one of the chaplains here at the Charles E. Smith Living Communities. I'm very happy to be celebrating Shabbat with you this evening. We'll begin with Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Boachem l'shalom malachei hashalom malachei elyon. Mi melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Baruch hu nil shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. And we will continue with Ma Tovu, a song that means how lovely are your dwellings, O Jacob, your sanctuaries, O Israel. And it stands as a reminder to us that we can turn our homes into sanctuaries. In fact, we're doing that right now. As you're watching this service, you're making your home, your living room, your kitchen table a sanctuary, because happily we're able to pray to God from wherever we are. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. So we welcomed in the Shabbat angels with Shalom Aleichem. We recognized the sanctuaries that we create within our homes and within ourselves with Ma Tovu. And now we're going to sing Lecha Dodi, about the love song, the marriage, the relationship between the people of Israel and God. We're going to be doing the first two verses and the last two verses of Lecha Dodi. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Ishmi'anu el hamiuchad. Adonai echad u'shmo echad. L'shemo tiferet v'lithilah. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Ki hi mekor habracha. Merosh mikadem nesucha, Sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Yaminu smol tifrotzi, V'et Adonai ta'aritzi. Al yad ish ben partzi, V'nismecha v'nagila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Mo'i v'shalom ateret bala, Gam b'simcha u'v'tzohola, Toch emunei am segula. Bo'i chala, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nekavela. We now turn to Hama'ariv Aravim. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness away from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name, ever-living God. May you reign continually over us into eternity. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amcha Ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu, shochlenu v'kumeinu, nasiach b'chukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגד יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני Oheb Amo Yisrael. And now we say the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shiftecha b'beitecha ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, and with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children and talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you are rested. Let these words guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorways of your home or outside your gate. These words are reminders to do all of my mitzvot so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai, your God. When God's children beheld the power of the divine, they sang in praise of God, gladly accepting God's sovereignty. Moses, Miriam, and the people Israel sang with great joy this song to you. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot. Who is like you, God, among all that is worshipped? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in splendor, working wonders? Your children beheld your sovereignty as you divided the sea before Moses. This is my God, they responded, declaring, Adonai imloch leolam vaed. And we turn now to Vishamru, our song of Shabbat, a song that says that the people of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, maintaining it as an everlasting covenant throughout the generations. It is a sign between me and the people Israel forever that in 6 days God made the heaven and earth, and on the seventh day ceased from work and rested. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, la'asot et HaShabbat ledorotam berit olam. Beni uven b'nei Yisrael, oti leolam, oti leolam, oti leolam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, la'asot et HaShabbat ledorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai, asa Adonai, et hashamayim v'et haaretz v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, la'asot et HaShabbat ledorotam berit olam. Ubayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, la'asot et HaShabbat ledorotam berit olam. At this point, we will turn to the Amidah, the Avot service, where we remind God of God's relationships with our patriarchs and our matriarchs, and say, God, if you can have that relationship with them, you can have an individual relationship with us as well. So I'm going to chant the first two paragraphs and then leave some time for silent contemplation, and we'll come back together with Oseh Shalom. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol, וזוכר חסדי אבות, ומביא גואל לפני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי המתים. I now invite you all to take some time for some silent contemplation. Yadai, 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 nai, 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 nai. Yadai, yadai, nai, yadai, nai. Yadai, nai, nai, nai. Yadai, nai, nai, yadai, nai, nai. Yadai, 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 nai. Yadai, dai, 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 yadai. Ya da da da, ya da da, ya da 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 da. Ya da da, ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da da da, ya da da da. Oseh shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Oseh shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru amen. We now turn to a prayer for healing, and we will begin with a prayer for healing for all the first responders and all those people who are on the front line keeping us safe. It's written by Rabbi Ayelet Cohen. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless all those who put themselves at risk for care for the sick, physicians and nurses and orderlies, technicians and home health aides, EMTs and pharmacists, hospital social workers and respiratory therapists, and all others who navigate the unfolding dangers of the world each day. To tend to those they have sworn to help, bless them in their coming home and bless them in their going out. Ease their fear, sustain them, source of all breath, healer of all beings, protect them and restore their hope. Strengthen them that they may bring strength, keep them in health that they may bring healing. Help them know again a time when they can breathe without fear. Bless the sacred work of their hands. May this plague pass from them and from among us speedily and in our days. And let us say, Amen. At this time, I would like to take a moment and invite all of you to think of those who you know who are ill and you would like to keep in your heart and in your mind and in our sacred space as we sing a prayer for healing. Mi sheberach avotenu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mikor habracha la'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. We now turn to Kiddush. And I'm going to give everyone a moment to get a Kiddush cup and some wine. And I'm going to get one as well. Excuse me. And I'm back. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratza banu. V'shabbat kodsho b'ahava ufratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit. Ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim. Ki vadu v'acharta, v'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha Yahava Vratzon Hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh Hashavat. L'chaim. At this time, we will count the Omer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, who rules the universe, instilling in us the holiness of mitzvot by commanding us to count the Omer. Hayom arba'a ve'arba'im yom, shehem shisha shavuot u'shnei yamim la'omer. Tonight is the 44th day, which is 6 weeks and 2 days of the Omer. I'm now going to share a few words of Torah with you. So this Shabbat begins the book of Bamidbar, translated as in the wilderness or in the desert, though in English, it's actually called the book of Numbers. So why Numbers? Wilderness or desert, the actual literal meaning of Bamidbar makes sense, as the Israelites spend the majority of the book wandering around in the desert, in the wilderness, until they reach the crossing of the River Jordan. But Numbers, where does that come from? Well, it turns out it's taken from the second verse in this chapter, in the book, actually. So Numbers chapter 1, verse 2 states, "Take a census of the whole Israelite community by the clans of its ancestral houses, listing the names, every male, head by head." And there are, in fact, 2 censuses taken in the book of Numbers, one here in chapter 1, which is taken in the second year from the Exodus, and another one toward the end of the book in chapter 26, which is taken 38 years later, just before the Israelites were to enter the land of Canaan, what we now call the land of Israel. Now, here in the United States, we're also in the process of filling out a census, the 2020 census. And I'd like to share some words about the census and its relationship to Torah from Rabbi Abby Sharofsky, who's the rabbi in residence of the JCRC, the Jewish Community Relations Council. She writes, "TV commercials remind us to take 10 minutes and complete the census form online or by email. Even Sesame Street is participating in the census, with its beloved count leading the way. The census is mandated by the US Constitution, happens once every 10 years, and determines many things from the number of seats a state has in the House of Representatives to the number of seats needed in any particular kindergarten class. We know the census is happening, yet the current national self-response rate is only 59.6% as of May 18th. That means that less than 2/3 of our country has been counted. What will our communities look like if resources and funds were to be allocated right now with only enough for 60% of the country?" Rabbi Sharofsky continues to discuss how much of the Jewish view of the census comes from this week's Torah portion. She goes on to say, the Israelites were commanded to take a census, an accounting of the entire community by their name and tribal affiliation. This was valuable information and helped Moses and Aaron assemble the community. Through this census, they knew the size of the tribe, the lineage, and were able to make informed decisions about their military strength, how to move throughout the wilderness of the Sinai, and organize themselves as they entered the land of Israel. The census created a living history and legacy for the Israelites and helped establish them as a viable, legitimate nation to other nations that they encountered along the journey. Now, this year's census comes at a difficult time for our country. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, it is not the first government initiative on people's minds, and taking 10 minutes to complete the online survey drops lower and lower on many to-do lists. The census counts all people in a community, regardless of their immigration or their housing status, and there are many people who fear that the information gained from completing the census survey will result in negative action against them. These fears and complications are resulting in a lower rate of response in areas with large immigrant communities and impoverished communities. Yet these are the communities that stand to lose the most, to not receive enough funding and support if the count is inaccurate. The Jewish community knows the importance of the census and is well positioned to be a leader in encouraging census participation. The commandment to conduct a census translates today to a moral and civil obligation to participate in our nation's census, as well as to help others participate. We must participate to ensure that the community that we live in, that Ringhouse and Landau House and Revitz are situated in, that they continue to thrive. Our obligation doesn't end when we submit our responses. Our community leaders must speak about and teach about the civic responsibility. Each response is more funds, more resources allocated to our roads, hospitals, and first responders. No single county or zip code in greater Washington area has a 100% response rate, which means there's still people in our schools, our synagogues, our neighborhoods, our senior living facilities who are not represented in this 2020 census. We participate in the census for ourselves and for our communities, recognizing that our community is strengthened through supporting each other. I shared Rabbi Sharofsky's words because I think she did a wonderful job at showing how a present-day civic duty, completing the census, is something that is grounded in, perhaps even originated in our Torah. It goes to the heart of the reality that as Jews, we are constantly living in multiple civilizations. Being Jewish and being American are just two of the realities in which we live. My charge to all of us is that after this Shabbat, each of us, if we have not yet already, fill in our census forms and exercise the right, one of the rights, privileges, and responsibilities we have of being Americans and of being a Jew. At this time, we will say Arlene. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו, וגובה מרומים, Hu Eloheinu ein od, emet malkeinu efes zulato, kakatuv b'torato, v'yadata hayom, v'yadata hayom v'hashevota el levavecha, ki Adonai hu Elohim, בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת, אין עוד, אין עוד. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. We conclude with the Mourner's Kaddish. I invite all of those who are in mourning, who have a yurtzeit tonight or in the week ahead, or who feel moved to say Mourner's Kaddish for those that they have lost, to please join me. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divra kirutei, v'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kari v'imru amen, Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Leolam Olomei Olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal Shmei Dukudesha Brichu Le'elam min kol berchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehi Shalama Rabbah min Shemaya. V'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. May the memories of our loved ones be for a blessing. I would like to wish you all a Shabbat Shalom, a Shabbat of love and peace and health, happiness and safety, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.